Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Martinez, and I am your host for this podcast called Forensic Files. I'm currently battling a cold, so please excuse my voice. The topic we will be going over today is Lockhardt's exchange principle, which states that the perpetrator of a crime will bring something into the crime scene and leave with something from it, and that both can be used as forensic evidence. In other words, when there is contact between two items, there will be an exchange of microscopic material. A recent assignment the class participated in was Assignment 5 from Learning Module 3 titled Lockhardt's Exchange Principle, and it has so far been one of my favorite assignments that we have done for this class. The instructions for the assignment included wearing a shirt for the entire day and recording our movements as well as describing the objects, people, or animals we interact with throughout the day. At the end of the day, we had to examine the shirt for any traces of material left from the day. I was surprised at how many different pieces of material I was able to find on my own shirt because I was not expecting for the experiment to work as well as it did, truthfully. My findings from the shirt included different types of hair, fabric, and even grains of soil. I was not surprised by the hair because I do own a dog and I interact with him on a regular basis, but the fact that the shirt had strands of fabric from my craft project and soil from gardening was astonishing to me, really. I had not heard of Lockhardt's exchange principle before this experiment, but I was absolutely captivated by the topic right after completing the experiment and dove into some research on the internet. It was very interesting to learn about the importance of Lockhardt's principle to forensics and how it connects to modern-day physical evidence found at crime scenes. Criminal investigation and identification evolved greatly due to Lockhardt's work, as it truly forms the basis for what it is widely regarded as the cornerstone of the forensic sciences. The exchange that occurs between contact can be interpreted as the cause and effect principle just reversed. The effect is observed and the cause is concluded. Let me know what you guys think of this experiment in the comments and whether you have already tried it or are interested in trying it out in the future. Lockhardt's exchange principle can be found at nearly all crime scenes, but a special one we will talk about in today's podcast is the case of serial killer Ted Bundy's last victim, Kimberly Leach. Kimberly Leach was only 12 years old when she was kidnapped by Bundy, and while she did fit the overall physical description of Bundy's victims, her age was significantly younger than nearly every other victim, as they were all in their late teens to early 20s. This detail made the case an odd one, as it is not known why Bundy deviated from his modus operandi, but personally, I think that perhaps he felt the pressure of the law on his back as he knew he could be going back to prison at any given moment. Ted Bundy was able to abduct Leach in broad daylight, taking the girl from the Lake City, Florida middle school where she was attending. A witness later reported that he saw a man fitting Bundy's description leading a girl he would later believe to be Leach away from the school by her arm. During Bundy's murder trial, that witness was asked by lead prosecutor Bob Deckel what impression that scene left him with at the time. The witness replied that he just assumed it was a father taking his daughter home from getting in trouble at school. Bundy was arrested days later when a police officer apprehended him for driving a stolen car. Bundy was linked to the crimes against Kimberly Leach after investigators located a white Dodge van he had used to pick up the victim, and inside of it, they found evidence damning to Bundy's case. 2 large spots of human blood that came back as a match to Kimberly, as well as fiber traces that matched her purse. Expert analysis of soil and leaves found outside and inside the vehicle suggested they came from a moist river bottomland, the same kind located along the Suwannee River. Kimberly Leach's remains were found near the Suwannee River just 2 months later. Following the conviction, Bundy confessed to at least 35 murders committed from 1974 to 1978. He was sentenced to the capital punishment 3 times before his execution took place on January 24, 1989, 11 years after the murder of Kimberly Leach. This tragic case was a confusing one to all on the motives of Ted Bundy, but if it weren't for the physical evidence found at the crime scene and the car, he would not have been put on trial for Kimberly Leach's death. It was really interesting to see just how important physical evidence is to a case. What are your thoughts on this Ted Bundy's final crime, and why do you think he deviated so greatly from his usual MO? Now, switching gears, I will be discussing a current event that ties into the matter of physical evidence in forensic science, a topic we have recently learned about in Learning Module 3. The news article from AP News titled "Judge Finds Forensic Scientist Henry Lee Liable for Fabricating Evidence in a Murder Case" was published July 21, 2023, and is about how famed forensic scientist Henry Lee has been found liable for fabricating evidence in a murder case that wrongfully sent 2 Connecticut men, Ralph Ricky Birch and Sean Henning, to prison for decades. They were convicted in the 1985 slaying of Everett Carr, largely based on Lee's testimony about alleged bloodstains on a towel found at the crime scene. A federal judge's ruling on Friday, July 21st of this year, determined that Lee had no evidence to support his testimony and fabricated information related to the case. The case against the police and the town will now proceed to trial. Lee, who gained fame for his involvement in high-profile cases, including the O.J. Simpson trial, is now facing potential damages as the only remaining issue in his case. The wrongful convictions of Birch and Henning were based on Lee's claims that the assailants could have avoided getting blood on them and that a towel found at the crime scene had bloodstains consistent with the crime. Subsequent tests conducted after their convictions were overturned revealed that the substance on the towel was not, in fact, blood. This case raises serious questions about Lee's credibility and has prompted scrutiny of his work in other high-profile cases. Lee has maintained his innocence and asserted that this was the first time in his long career that he had to defend himself against accusations of wrongdoing. This current event goes to show the seriousness and importance of the presence of physical evidence at a crime scene and how necessary it is to re-examine and reevaluate any potential evidence that comes into court along as well as following proper protocol and handling of any and all evidence, especially physical evidence. It's also best to keep in mind that forensic analyzers must swear to be honorable and truthful to their job. Physical evidence does not only determine how a crime was committed, but also is used to connect a suspect with the crime or identify the criminal, and in this case, after some misjudgment and heedlessness from investigators, 2 innocent men were placed in jail without justification. Well, this wraps up this week's podcast. Thank you very much for listening to Forensic Files, and I hope to see you back here next episode. Till then, stay curious. References and links for both the Ted Bundy crime and the current event article can be found below in the description box.